When I hear people say that Islam is misogynistic, I laugh and I get annoyed. The reason I get annoyed is because we live in the information age. Surely, before you open your mouth and speak, before you begin typing away on your keyboard, you will look up information that's handy at your fingertips because it makes you look bad. So in the interest of you not looking bad, why don't you look up the information before you start spewing all this hate, racism, bigotry, whatever it is that is ignorant, okay? Because of the fact that we are in the information age, and Islam or Muslims are like the last frontier, that you can just say and do anything about Muslims or Islam and it's not a big deal. It's not considered a thing, you know? I digress. So my point here is that because we live in the information age, it's very easy to gain that information, to find that information very easily, that's just not true. Islam is not misogynistic. Maybe that's what you'd like to believe, but in Islam, we received our rights as women over 1400 years ago. We didn't have to wait for the suffragists of the West, and we didn't have to wait for feminism of the 60s to get our rights. Most of the countries of the world that have given women their rights did not give women their rights in the 80s or 90s. They didn't get their full rights until the 80s or 90s of the 20th century. Not the century before or the century before that. We received them over 1400 years ago. So in the interest of you not looking bad, I suggest you look it up. And those rights that we received over 1400 years ago were things like inheritance. We had the right to inherit. Things like the money that we would receive from our husbands or our fathers was our money. We were not obligated to use it for anything else. The fact that we didn't have to change our name. In fact, we should just keep our name and our identity instead of labeling ourselves as somebody's property. We are not somebody's property. I just laughed at people day to day now. They just change their name when they get married, but that's what that used to be. Maybe they forgot, but what that is ownership. When you change your name, you change the ownership of you. So women were not something to be owned. We had our own identity as moms, as daughters, as wives, as business owners, as scholars. We had those rights from then. And before anybody comes for me and says, oh, what about the fact that they didn't get the same amount when they would get inheritance? Well, the reason was because women's money were for themselves. They were not obligated to use it to support or take care of anybody else, whereas men have to take care of their moms, their sisters, their daughters, their wives. The list is endless on the responsibilities the men have. And the rights that we received from Islam, from Allah, from God, were not just that. How we were not allowed to be treated, how we were supposed to be spoken to, how we were supposed to have our living conditions, what rights we had from our husbands to make sure that we had our human rights or basic needs. Men don't have that. Men have to go to work. Men have to take care of their families. Men have to take care of all the families that he's directly responsible for. His mom, his wife, his sister, his daughter, those are all his responsibilities. Women don't have those responsibilities. And we're living in an era where we're like man bashing every single day. We don't need men. If you ask men generally this question, they'll say, of course we need women. But generally, if you ask a lot of women, they'll be like, no, we don't need men. Well, maybe you won't need men in a time where all the technology of the genetics, we have it now, and maybe you feel like you don't need men. But we may or may not always have that. That's what we're here for, to find our companions. Anyway, as I said before, we had our rights to vote. We had a right to our own name, our identity, our inheritance, the money to spend on ourselves. We didn't have the obligation to spend it on anybody else. We are allowed to work. If we don't want to work, we don't have to. If we spend money in our family, in our household, it's not considered something that you have to do. It's considered as charity. You get good deeds, or you get brownie points, whatever you want to call it, from just giving, putting money into your family, from taking care of your children or your husband, or buying groceries. All of those things are counted as charity. Did I mention voting? Did I mention owning your own business? Did I mention the money that you get to keep when you get married? Men don't have all those rights. Women do. What you are mixing up here is the difference between Islam and Muslims. Islam is perfect, and you can't say otherwise until you've actually read the Quran, so sit down. And Muslims are not perfect, and they make mistakes. They do bad things. They're not perfect. They're human beings. Islam is from Allah. So keep that in mind. The next time you see a Muslim and you consider that they're doing something wrong, it's not Islam. Islam gave us all the rights. We didn't have to wait for the 20th century. That's it. So for all of you who suffered through another event, for those of you that are fasting, happy Ramadan, and may Allah give you all the good deeds and all the blessings from all your fasting and all your prayers. And may Allah help all those that are oppressed. Assalamu alaikum.